Awesome podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, along with our other host, Angela Belford. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of living in your season. So, Angela, just a quick, start off high level. How's your season going right now? How you doing?
Well, I'm not responsible for anybody else's meals, putting their shoes on. I get myself out the door. I go to bed when I want. I get up when I want. It's pretty great.
That feels like pointed. I'm gonna take,
Well, because sometimes I do keep my grandchildren and it like makes me realize, woo, so nice that one of them can put their shoes on now. That's amazing. So those once a quarter sleepovers that seems to be our pattern. I definitely toddlerhood.
There's a
What about you,
stamina
Sami?
build up for sure though on that one, that like when you do it every day, it gets a little easier. When you only do it once a quarter, your stamina is not quite there to match them at 6 a.m.
We also eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly and pancakes at Lala's house. We don't have to, worry about any kind of food pyramid or whatever because mom's got that one. So pretty fun.
Oh yeah. My season is actually, I would say it's going pretty great these days. It's summer and
everybody just went, I can't listen to this podcast. These people are just going to brag about their life.
Oh my gosh. I promise it's not a brag episode. We will get to the hard stuff. You got to start off shallow and you dive like a pool in summertime. We're going to wade in. We're not jumping into the deep end on this one. All right.
Deep end is coming.
When I was a child, I was a jump into the deep end kind of gal. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm like, it is okay to wade in. Okay. And there's some judgment about that from people, metaphorically and literally. They're like, no, you can't just wade in. And I'm like, I want to get my ankles wet and then feel comfortable with the temperature and then get my knees wet. And that's okay. So we're going to do that today.
I'm so sorry. I interrupted. You were talking about your season and probably because of a contrast that you can say your season's great. So go ahead.
Oh, well, yes. It's summer and my kids are both at daycare. And so we spend a lot of weekends and evenings just doing fun stuff outside. And that has been really lovely. If you're watching the YouTube right now, you can even see my sunburn on my arm from not taking care of the sunscreen quite as much as I should have. My children walked away sunburn free. Thank you, though. So I just neglected my own needs. I'm sure I could take some lifelong lessons from that as well. But that's not what we're talking about today. We'll talk about mom guilt and not taking care of ourselves always on a different week coming up soon. Today, we just wanted to talk about this idea, even like Angela earlier this year, you worked in Costa Rica and there was we made a Instagram reel a little bit about whether you are traveling the world and doing all sorts of crazy adventures or whether you're at home sort of just playing in the mundane, quote, air quotes, mundane, what can feel mundane. You can still live a freaking awesome life. And so this has sort of brought up this theme for you and I in our conversations, just about what does it actually mean to live freaking awesomely, to live in a freaking awesome way, to be freaking awesome, to do those things.
Way to get on brand.
Yeah, I got there. And I was adding all the keywords. That's what it was. Just re-saying it a couple times. But in different seasons of life, looking like your life is freaking awesome, living in a freaking awesome way can look different. And I think where you and I have come to is that there are some conventional definitions of awesome and appearances of awesome that is not actually what makes one's life freaking awesome. You can be traveling and deeply unhappy, and you can be at home doing nothing and incredibly fulfilled. It's not the actual appearance of what your life looks like that can define freaking awesome. And so we really just wanted to talk about that concept today. It's something we've been really discussing, frankly, since you got back from Costa Rica and felt it was time.
Yeah, well, because I think about, you have your season with the toddlers, which is, in some ways chosen and expected. Of course, my life is going to be different, but more interested in the people that are in situations not of their choosing. And probably the age that I am, I have a number of friends that are um, caring for aging parents.
Mhm.
And freaking awesome looks very different if you are the primary contact for when a fall or a trip to the hospital is needed, with all those things. Like, you may go, it's not even feasible for me to consider leaving the country because I can't even seem to go 30 miles down the road. I can't even go for an overnight. It doesn't feel like, because things are really hard right now. And to you, I would say, and I often say, no one was jealous of my life when I was 26. At 26, I had a newborn, a 2-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and not a single person on the planet. People may have been like, "Oh, I wish I could." I had several friends that were trying to have children, so they enjoyed that part, or they wished for that part. I won't say enjoyed, but they wished for that part of my life. But besides that, we had just bought a business, bought a house. We were I I can't, I don't even want, it's terrible how financially um s- stressful that time of season was. It was mentally taxing, it was physically taxing, it was the most stressful thing. And again, that was not caring for aging parents, but I did go through, in 2005 and 6, I had my father figure that, went to work on a Saturday, collapsed, went flatline. The ambulance came and revived him. I rushed to Ohio to help with hospice care, and 3 weeks later he died. In some ways, he's my inspiration to, like, not work. He literally went to work the day before he went in the hospital and passed away. And that was in, October, and then Barry's mom got sick, and we lost his Barry's brother's wife, his sister-in-law, and his mom within like 7 weeks of each other, and so that season, and at that point, my kids were like, 5, 8, and whatever that is, 11.
11.
And so, like, that season was crazy hard. And I remember a friend of ours saying, like, I understand that it was shocking how quickly, because from when she, like, had a heart attack until she passed away, it was less than 3 weeks. And so we have two different parent figures in less than 6 months pass with only about 3 weeks notice. And our friend said, I know that's really hard. However, my wife's mother has declined for 6 years, and it's hard to get caught off guard, and it's also hard to have it just go on. And so I just say that to say, like, there are so many seasons of life, and I think anytime we compare, we're just foolish. Even if we compare our own life, now to previous times, then we're foolish. Like, I think the whole point of Be Freaking Awesome is self-awareness, clarity, and deciding how you want to approach whatever you're experiencing. And because the only thing you can control, no matter what situation is coming, is how you respond. And so, to me, that's the freaking awesome life, is choosing your response. If you get to design your life, then that's obviously like number 2 priority for me. But number 1 is choose your response.
I think that when thinking about just sort of the season I'm in of parenting littles, I was talking with my husband a little bit about this, and there are a lot of things that we could focus on that we are missing out on because of this. And when we were sort of the first of our college friends to have kids. And whenever we hang out with them or reconnect with that group of friends, there's so many times where it's be like, hey, we can't do something at 1 in the afternoon because that's nap time. So we either have to duck out or we need to rearrange the day that, like, chill hangout time at home is not first thing in the morning. It needs to be right after lunch. And that's just, we have to think about our schedule and our day and logistics differently to accommodate for these children that we have created and agreed to take care of. Um, but then also there are there are a ton of other things that I think in general people, but also we don't always recognize or be intentional about acknowledging this is a really great thing about our season. One of the things that's really nice or can be really nice about parenting kids in this little season is that have I actually have a lot of opportunity to connect with other adults very naturally. That I take my kids to the park and there are other adults who have also taken their children to the park. Sometimes, yes, is that weird to just like go up to another adult and talk to them and like make a friend? Maybe. But also, I have an opportunity. I have, when we talked about in our How to Make Friends as an Adult episode, I intersect with a ton of other adults at school parties, at birthday parties, at the park, at the Amazium, at wherever it is. Whereas if I didn't have children, I would have to be intentional and go on purpose out of my way to find those intersection points. And that's a benefit of my season of life that not everybody has, that we don't always think about. And we don't think about what is the thing right now that I can be grateful for that I won't always have in a way that's not like toxic positivity, like just ignore all the bad things. It's fine. That's such a nuance. It's such a hard thing. I put $1 in the jar. Such a hard thing though to think about. It is hard to wake up early in the morning on Saturdays because a 4-year-old has come into my bedroom and said, "I'm ready to go." That sometimes sucks a whole lot, and then you go, and I'm grateful for my husband who's an early morning riser and will take the kids, um, different things like that. I don't know, so I've just been thinking about there's always good and bad.
Mhm. It's interesting that you point out that about the intersection because I have met a lot of people that are like my age and older, people that have moved to our area that are in their like post, we'll call it empty nest. Maybe they didn't have children but they are post child age, and they say it is so hard to meet friends. So hard. I have another friend who was like, do not live one place your whole life and then retire somewhere else. You will never make new friends. And I
Mm.
was like, that's a little extreme. He happened to, when he moved, he also like had a fall, so he was less active. And then about a year later, COVID hit. And so it just wiped out what things he could do because he was trying to go to the senior center and some things like that. So I know there are some places that you can do that, but he just was like, when COVID hit, like I didn't have those 20-year friendships that I could be like, hey, let's jump on a Zoom and catch up. Or I didn't have people I could like go sit in the park and be 6 feet away from because we knew each other forever. Like it's just weird when you've just met somebody to do that. So it is there is a huge benefit to that season. We decided, oh, go ahead.
Well, and I was like, and you can't be totally jealous of my life because that benefit also comes with toddlers who be like, "Mom, you're a bad mom because you told me that magic doesn't work at bedtime." And you're like, "You know what, kid? You're right. I'm a bad mom because I said magic doesn't work at bedtime when you're trying to stall." Like, I
And
also have a bully who's actively trying to tear me down
and you
every other
can't just
day.
go out to dinner with your friends without getting a babysitter. Right.
Right.
Or if
Oh,
you do, it's like you can't really go into deep conversations because it's mom, 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 mom. You
oh,
know what I
yeah.
mean? And so there's oh definitely. I think that is a
That's the
default.
thing. You can't It's like being jealous of somebody else's life. It's just like a fallacy.
It really is.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't I also want to comment on this a little bit because I think that I'm unique and I'm sure that people cannot relate to this. I don't necessarily struggle a ton with the comparison game. Like, and I don't know why it is, but I really like I see other people on social media and I like am like, "Oh, man, I'm very curious about what happens to them." Or like outside of this, like, I don't know, there's a lot of times where I'm pretty good at it. I feel like you're gonna tell me, "No, you're not, Sammy. Think about this time. What about that time?" No,
No,
are
I'm
you gonna
not gonna at all.
Uh-oh.
I can tell you that that is like that is your wiring. Okay, that is not
Oh.
anything I taught you. That is not anything that like you read a book, you did therapy, none of those things. That is your wiring. And the way, here's my proof of that is that like I can remember in the 3rd grade just being like, peer pressure doesn't even work for her to brush her hair. Oh my gosh. Like she doesn't even care. And then you were very, very strong-willed. And luckily I read a book, um, which now would be controversial, the author, but what I loved about the takeaway I got was like, what's the upside of this? So I have this child that won't listen to me and won't follow directions. I know that's hard for everybody to believe. Hard. Miss Perfectionism over there across the way from me, but wouldn't follow. And I just was like, you know what? She's going to be a strong leader and she's never going to succumb to peer pressure when she's a teenager because she's almost anybody but herself. So that has been like that. I mean, you wore headgear like 24/7 with your hair just everywhere, like way beyond my ability to like keep my cool points in check. So that is just how you're wired, and
I
it's a
what's
blessing.
funny is that when you said that, I thought you were gonna tell a different story, which just goes to show that I can think of at least 2 other stories. Like, oh yeah, I did do this as a kid. There was the time when in kindergarten I got off the bus from school and you looked at me and you were like, "Oh my gosh, Sammy, did you really wear that to school?" And you're like, "Mom, you just saw me get off the bus. Of course I wore it to school." Like,
5. She said that to me at 5, and I had been asleep because I'd been nursing Lexi when this happened, so Barry had let her get on the school bus during that, yeah. Of course I wore that.
I
I
just got off the bus. Duh. Logistics. Can't you see how that added up?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
your sass. That doesn't prove that you, don't care what anybody thinks. That
Well, I
just is
mean,
the
the fact
sass.
that I wore whatever I wanted to wear, that's the part that I think articulates
Funny because I
that.
tell Lexi all the time I can't remember a whole lot from that season of my life, and that's, like, one of the only memories I have from that season. Because I did get embarrassed by some of the stuff that you were willing to wear, and I was just like, "Oh, you cannot make that mean something about your own self. Oh." It did help that I was in choir, and so every mom in choir threatened to buy a button that said, "Mom's in choir today, Dad dress me." So
It's
I
nice
wasn't
to have
alone.
some community around that.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
yeah.
misery loves company. But
Anyway, so
so anyway, I don't know if you have tips for people because like there are times I have been asked like, "Well, how do you do it?" And I'm like, "You just don't care about what other people think." Or like I
well,
don't and because of that I don't always care what I don't care what people think about my life in certain ways. And I think that helps me translate that in some ways I don't really care about what their lives look like. I hesitate to say like I don't care about my friends' lives and I don't care about other people's lives. That's not what I'm meaning.
oh,
But I
because I would
do
say that all of your friends would be like, "Oh, you are very quick to answer, ask, or offer advice for how I can make my life better."
um but
Unsolicited advice central over here between the two of
what?
us.
No way, man. I at least give a warning before I offer unsolicited advice.
Oh, I'm kettle calling the pot black.
Oh,
Okay.
I was like, yours is also you'd be like, well, like if I'll be complaining about something or ranting about something, be like, you'll pause and say, are you just looking for someone to listen? Or do you maybe want someone to provide some other thoughts? And I'm like, no, leave your comments behind. Like, clearly you don't agree with me. Like, it's so obvious from how you're presenting the question. Listen, that's
Right,
it.
because
And then
right,
I'm like,
because otherwise I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it."
right. If you agreed with me, you would instantly agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, you ask, well, do you just need someone to listen? And I'm like, dang it. This is like I used to have a boss who when she liked an idea, she was very enthusiastic. And when she didn't like an idea, she was super neutral about it. I was like, oh, so you hate it. And she's like, no, I wasn't. I was so neutral. And I was like, yeah, but if you liked it, you are eager to tell someone you like it. Anyway, stuff like that. That's sort of that little like
That's
anyway.
hilarious.
Feel like we've
Okay, so
diverged from season of life a little bit, but I don't think that this is bad
no, because
advice.
it's about comparison, really.
Yeah.
I That's what I would say, and it's interesting because the one of the books that I explore go.
Well, I'm checking myself. Um So I said I don't really care. I don't often care about comparing myself to people on social media. There have been some times where when you're off in Costa Rica and you're in New Orleans and you're planning your trip to London, and I'm like, I want to take my kids on a I want to go on a vacation so bad. I want to go travel and I am going on a vacation next week. Actually, that's not true. I'm not going on a vacation. I'm going on an adventure and I'm parenting in another location. It's different than a vacation. And those are times where I do get like just like a little longing towards what
What's
will be in
funny
the
is that
future.
that means that when this episode publishes, everybody be thinking about Sammy adventuring at the beach with 2 toddlers, with 4
Yes.
toddlers since you're going with your neighbors.
Yeah, and so there are times though when I can look at your life and it looks so great. And oh, even whenever I was nursing Henry, and like waking up in the middle of the night every 3 hours, I was like, one day I will sleep through the night again because my mom sleeps through the night and she has a 26-year-old. So I could at least count on that by 26, my season of life will like within the next 26 years, this season will change. I don't know why, like the deep irrational state I was in that I needed the light at the end of the tunnel was at least 26 years away, but it existed. And when I share that, you're like, it's probably significantly sooner than 26 years away. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is. Hopefully it is, but like, I'm not sure that I can even hold on to that.
I will be so curious if anybody else laughs this entire episode because I'm laughing this entire episode. But no,
So yeah, so
again,
tell me about your perfect life and tell us about
yeah,
all
well,
the
I told you at 26 it wasn't that great. And busy little, I mean, 3 kids very close together. People used to go, y'all need to get cable. You get 3 kids in 5 years. And well, it's because we couldn't afford a lot of other entertainment. I'm just kidding.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you
I hope
just
you
like
cut that
say it
part.
like that? Oh, no way, man. This is staying in. You didn't say anything that I have to put an E rating on this. Like, we're fine.
Okay. So, but anyway, I have been on my journey to heal my heal the trauma of my past from my childhood. Well, that's another thing. Like, let's start there. I decided that the first 18 years of my life sucked. And so now that it was up to me, it was not going to suck anymore. Like, it sucked because of other people, and it was no longer going to suck because of me.
What is it? The first step is make a decision.
Yeah. First step, read the book, be freaking awesome. You can download it for free on angelabelfer.com right now. So I started my healing journey at 19. I had my nervous breakdown where I actually decided to heal and not just get some temporary therapy when I was 25, 24.
I think 22.
No, because it was between Josh and Lexi. Yep, Josh was 9 months old when I had nervous breakdown. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and at the end of, I was still in therapy when I had to go, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant with a 3rd baby. So I was glad I was still paying for therapy at that point. Anyway, and then I continued to be on my journey. Like, I was pregnant with Lexi when I went to be trained by Jack Canfield to do facilitating self-esteem workshops. I was literally 5 months pregnant. You could barely tell I was pregnant, but I was pregnant. And which we had this exercise where we had to like walk through the arrow, and there's all these things that we had to like break through our fears. And I just wonder about like how that impacted Lexi. Like, I can remember the arrow exercise. You had to literally put this arrow like in the small of your throat, and you had to sign this release that said you could die. And you couldn't hold them liable. And I sat up there going, I can't do that. I'm pregnant. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And then I realized how much fear was coursing through my body. And I'm like, well, this fear is way worse for this baby than anything else I would do. And so I went and did it. And Barry's like, you didn't even check with me before you did it. And I'm like, this is before cell phones. But anyway, and then, so I continued on my journey, and I will tell you that my husband like made fun of me for years. Oh, you're reading another self-help book. Like, everybody sees the beautiful, wonderful sweet berry, but he didn't need a journey. His mom told him it was perfect. And so we get to about 2013 and we were turning 40. Sammy would just finish her freshman year of college. And I looked at him and I said, listen, you're right. You don't have to deal with your crap, but neither do I either. And so began to make plans to just finish out raising kids separately and get a divorce. And it was several weeks later after I'd made that decision. I didn't tell him, but I had made the decision that he kind of had his awakening. Notice I call mine a nervous breakdown, but when I'm talking about somebody else's life, then it's their awakening. And it was literally on the anniversary of, or it was on his mom's birthday. And then he really embraced it. And I literally said to him, I don't want to hear about your journey for the first 90 days, because you've done this where you'll like be better for 90 days when I get mad, and then you're like, it just stops. I said, so you can talk to me at 4 months. And like my mentor, oh, she was so mad at me. What do you mean you don't want to hear about his therapy? I'm like, I don't want to hear crap. And so 4 months later, I went, oh my gosh, you actually are changing. You're actually like going on your journey. I'm so impressed. And I said, thank you for doing that for me. He goes, I started laughing, like hardest dude ever laughed. He goes, I didn't do it for you. I finally did it for me. And then right after that, he got glasses, and he, at 41, figured out that he was nearsighted, farsighted, and had astigmatism. And he was like, oh my gosh, I hate it. I go, I don't hate it, because you're so different 5 months later. It is nice for me to see a visual difference. Now, it has still been bumpy. There are so many stories I could tell over these last 10 years, but even a year ago, I thought we had agreed that this is how we talk about our finances and where our finances is at with our business. And come to find out, when I got some more coaching so that I didn't have panic attacks every time I logged into a bank account, I found out that what I believed about our finances and our amount of debt that our business had was different than he did. It was very difficult, because we had grown so close together, and I just couldn't imagine that he wouldn't be able to share this with me. And he was scared that because we'd gotten so close, that if he told me how much debt we had, then it would ruin everything. And so as a result, at that point, I was like, you know what? I really enjoy our marriage. I like who we are, but I don't really like being your business partner all that much. And so we shifted roles, and I went back to work at the Belford Group as CEO. And for a minute, we thought he was going to get a job. And then we figured out that he's a very valuable resource, expensive to replace. So we worked through that, but that was a year ago, like in the midst of like a lot of our travel. It was very scary to go. And, I've had episodes about the messy middle and that I'm willing to talk about. It was so scary for me that I didn't even know how to talk about it. And this was, this was when all this happened, it was a year after I'd gotten fired from the housing authority. So I've been through plenty. My life is not as perfect as it looks. And if anybody's tuned in, I go through seasons where I will hibernate from social media, because I just can't. I just need to go and heal for a minute. And I just need to go. And even in Costa Rica, like I had some moments where I was like, this is so weird to be sitting on a beach and feeling so disappointed because I couldn't make myself do work on my book. And my brain is like, you are in paradise. Why are you disappointed? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm disappointed. I mean, but I'm writing this stupid book that says I'm supposed to feel my feelings. So I think I'm supposed to sit here in this, and I really just want to avoid it. And I really want to drink something, and I really want to just like enjoy my life and be toxic positivity, but I'm supposed to be embracing this crap. And so, I mean, golly, y'all, that was 3 months ago. So we don't even talk about 3 days ago, me having to feel my feelings. Like it's an ongoing journey, and not like some of it do I share on social media? Sure. And sometimes do I share this? I mean, now obviously I'm sharing this on a podcast that could totally blow up, but I cannot express enough that what we put on social media, as vulnerable and open as I am on social media, I still like, nobody wants to see all the dirty laundry. Like, ew, Like, it's just, that's not the place for it. The place for it is when I go to dinner with friends, when I go have coffee with friends, and when I'm in my small group at church, and I can say, this is really hard. This really sucks. So this is not to say that I hid completely, but it's to say that I chose the safe places for me until I could heal. There's not very many people in surgery. When you're having surgery, there's a few people that are key that, and then once you're healing, then you can be out and about again.
Well, and I think that even when we hear about someone's messy middle, we often hear about the messy middle
Of course.
after I've processed, after I've taken lessons, after I am able to give you the hope and the encouragement that you might be in a messy middle right now that you're not talking about, but it gets better. Like, that's more often why we share the messy middle, is that this thing that I did go through was super hard, and now I've processed it, and here's the good, bad, and ugly that came from it. Take the information and learn and use it. I mean, I think even so often we've talked about this approach to life and parenting, really, where you have offered, I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I did. I want you to go make new mistakes. And so learn from my mistakes so you don't have to fall in the same trap twice. Our line, our people, go make a new one. In some ways, that is also why we share our messy middle stories, is to give somebody else, here's a thing that I went through. I don't know, maybe an encouragement and offer that it could, like, it'll get better. Here's something you can learn to do it differently.
Well, and
But we're not sharing those in real time, very rarely.
we're not. And the other thing is that, in case that I told that story in such a way that it's like, oh, only Barry had to go through his journey, only Barry was like this. That's not what I was meaning to say. If I
Oh,
did that, I want to clarify. When we were in therapy, I didn't know I had abandonment issues. I didn't know that some of the things that I did naturally, like hide when I'm scared out of my mind, hide from, won't talk to him, or else like he gets two versions, like a screaming, raving lunatic or silence. And so like I make a ton of mistakes in the midst of that. It's a little hard on your self esteem if you are writing a book about feeling your feelings and then about trying to not get hijacked by your emotions. And when you get hijacked by your emotions, like, and then you're a jerk to your husband who's working really hard to, be on his journey, like it sucks a lot. Cause then you're like, oh crap, maybe I don't actually know what I'm talking about. Maybe I shouldn't actually be telling anybody how to live their life because you're just a damn mess right now. I think I said that to you when I was in Costa Rica. Why am I writing a book about this? I can't even help myself. Why would I try and help anybody else? You're like,
rah, rah, rah.
"Ooh, wowza. Nobody wants to like have me have a whole episode on a podcast. Listen, sounded like that, but
Yeah.
it's real and it's part of the journey, I think. And so, yeah, comparison, never good.
Yep, never good. Living in your season. So maybe I'm in a hard season. Do you have any ideas on practice? I mean, I have some ideas on like practices or tips or things to
Yeah,
embrace it.
yep. I don't want to at all. I would say that my first book, Be Freaking Awesome, would say, what's funny is that I found so many places in there where I do talk about feeling your feelings. It's hilarious, but I didn't really get what that meant. I think I thought that meant like, wow, this is hard. I think I feel depressed. I thought there were words that had to go with that. And what I've learned and what this new book is about is really about tuning into your body and what's happening in your body, which we're going to get into a lot more over the next few months. But I would encourage you to find the places. One of my friends told me that in the morning when she wakes up, as soon as she gets out of bed, you know how sometimes you lay in bed and you're on your phone for a few minutes? You can decide that's a terrible idea, whatever, but she would get out of bed and lay on the floor. And just the laying on the floor, she would just sit there and stretch her legs and stretch her arms while she was doing her cell phone thing. because she was like, I still like to do it. I still, whatever, if I'm gonna watch the news, but just laying on the floor was like stretching kind of a thing. So she found the pockets of time that you can actually tune into your body. The other thing I would say is that to really cultivate gratitude, to
Mm.
find what the good is, which I know is so freaking cliche, but you know why things are cliche is because they actually work. But the other thing I would say is like find time to really see yourself and how hard it is. And like find an outlet, whether that is screaming in a pillow or if that is punching a pillow, if that is jumping on a trampoline. I literally asked for indoor mini trampoline for my a Christmas present. Find some way to express the negative feelings you are feeling because it actually sucks. And there is a little kid inside of you going, will you stop telling me to be grateful? And they just want to be like, this sucks. And it could be like on your drive home from work, just screaming a ranting song at the top of your lungs, whatever it is. But like, don't just shove those emotions down. Like, actually find a way to express them and not vomit on other people and not tornado on other people, but just like, ah.
What was that again? I'm just kidding.
Oh, it made me think of the Ted Lasso episode where Rebecca does the like big lion thing. Anyway, so, but you have to express those and let them out. Don't stuff them in gratitude. Like, maybe even spend a minute in your journal and like tell yourself, I see you. I see how hard this is. Oh my goodness, this is freaking hard. I know you're going to survive. I know we're going to make it. But my gosh, I just want to scream bloody murder and I want to run away.
I know I want to say, I think it was recently that you said, when all else fails, reparent yourself a little
Yes.
bit because my style of parenting, the parenting style I subscribe to, it's not the right word, whatever. Practice, that's a better word. I want to acknowledge the emotions and the pain that my kids feel. And I think that there are so many times, and even in like just different generations that, like a kid hurts himself and the response is, you're fine, get up, you're fine. That's not real. Nobody's saying that's not real, but that's a little bit of the message of you're fine. Don't act hurt. Stop crying. Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. Rub some dirt on it. And sometimes we just need to say, like, golly, that must have really hurt. Like, oh man, I can't believe you stubbed your toe. That hurts so much. I hate it when I stub my toe. You can do that to yourself and validate and say, it is okay. And that makes sense. Sometimes I will say I get a little annoyed with that makes sense. My husband learned that instead of solving my problems, he should say something, he should acknowledge them and hear them and blah, blah, blah. So then he'll just be like, that makes sense. And I'm like, stop saying that. You're being a robot. But also it's true, but like also don't be a robot. Anyway, and I'm sure he's in like a no-win situation on that one. I tried to listen. Anyway, it is still true. That makes sense. And that's okay to just tell yourself that. This makes sense.
Except, and it's also okay to tell yourself, this feels super irrational, and that's okay. It's okay. Like, I think that the fine line you got to walk between it makes sense and irrational fear is to be like, almost paint the context
Oh,
of
yes.
the it makes sense, but there's like, we're trying to say emotions make sense, which is the logic part of our brain. So it may not actually make a lot of sense to us unless you think about paint the context of like, oh, you got rejected a lot in high school. It makes sense that this would come back up for you because you've had
You
that so much things like this happen. This pattern has
you
happened over and over.
almost drowned when you were a teenager, and now you're in a river and the water washed over your head and you're having a panic attack when it's like you just like went underwater for a second. What, like, that seems irrational, air quotes.
Right.
But it's not. That makes sense. You had a traumatic experience, almost drowning as a teenager. Of course that this is going to be a little bit harder for you to deal with. That makes sense. Sometimes,
Yes.
but it does. I would even argue, even when it is, or it seems, or it appears irrational,
Mhm.
there probably is something that we've not connected a dot yet.
That's exactly right. Even if you don't know the context of where the body sensations are coming up for you, there's probably something. And sometimes if I ask clients in coaching, like, when is the first time that you remember feeling this way? And it'll be like, oh my goodness, in 6th grade, I didn't get invited to the sleepover. And then they're like, oh, and last week all my friends from work went to a birthday lunch and I didn't get an invitation. And all of a sudden I was raving lunatic. And it's like, okay, well, now it does make sense.
Right. And so I
Even
think
if you
that,
don't know cognitively why the reaction is there, it does actually make sense.
yeah, which if this excites you or frankly makes you nervous, buckle up. We're going to be talking more about this over the next couple of months because these are like strong foundation ideas, building blocks of book 2. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Any closing thoughts on living in your season? I have some, but I want you first. Or I can go first and you can go last. I don't
You're so
know.
cute. I have some, like,
I
don't
have some.
no pressure. In case you don't, I got you, boo.
I got you.
Um, sorry, I say I got you, boo, a lot. Maybe because my key. Um, living in your season. Number one, this too shall pass is a really good kind of mantra. This too shall pass. Now, when I'm having a really, really, really great day, I do not want to use that mantra, but it's true. It is true. This too shall pass. Like, I want to stay forever, this on top of the world. No, not going to happen. So that's one thing. What are the things, which brings me to, like, what are the things that you're thinking? How are you thinking about your season? Because if you are just delineating all the crappy parts of your life, that is why they talk about gratitude, is because what you focus on expands. And so the fact that Sami says, oh, wow, I can make new friends very easily, she focuses on that. And she doesn't focus on, but I can't go to dinner with them unless I hire a babysitter, which she's also worked out. So she has some friends that she's like, can you come to my house? My kids go to bed at 7:30. Do you care to come to my house? And she doesn't do weeknight dinners out a whole lot, you know? So I think that noticing what you think is a big part of it.
I think my closing thought is to take advantage of the opportunities that you have in your season, whatever they may be, which could be summed up into the wise words of Leanne Womack. If you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance, which, by the way, was the song that Angela and Josh danced to at his wedding. But I think there's so much truth to that, that in the season right now where my toddlers want to wake up early on Saturday morning and go make some pancakes, go make pancakes. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, because I promise it feels like a minute ago that my 2-year-old Josh was sitting there waiting for me to wake up, because somehow Sami had convinced him we don't wake mom up because she gets angry, and he would just sit there. And now I just danced with him at his wedding 6 weeks ago.
Well, yes, he also would sit there and be creepy and would whisper to his older sister, do you think she's awake yet? Is she awake? What do we think? No, I don't think she's awake. I don't think that was a real movement. And then you open your eyes and have two creepy little faces staring up at you. It was just a day ago when those two creepy faces were staring at you.
That one might have been a year ago or so, a minute ago. Anyway, I do want to, like, kind of I want to say a couple things
Without
about
the
preschool.
toxic, I was like, without the toxicness of the like,
yeah.
No.
But people always say, oh my gosh, it goes so fast. Toddler
Yes.
moms never think it goes fast. That's crap. They don't think that. I have often said the preschool years were the longest prison sentence I ever served. Like that was a very long 10 years of my life when they were preschoolers.
Well, in 10 years, they're like, wait, what? And it's like, are your children that like not smart that they had to be held back? No, 3 of them.
3 of them. Yeah. So those preschool years. Oh. And someone said, oh my gosh, because if you live in the South and you go to church, in that church called subculture, it's not a popular thing to say that preschool is a prison sentence. And I also enjoy that Sami is embracing the positiveness of that, because I was so overwhelmed. Can you imagine? Like, I was having nervous breakdowns while trying to parent little kids. I didn't even have a prefrontal cortex fully formed before I had my second child. It's insane that you guys are well-adjusted humans. Anyway, what I prefer is the saying that says the days are long, the years are short. Because to me, that says I see validates. You. I validate that this is a hard season of life, and it really will go quickly.
Yeah. So. Thanks everybody for listening to today's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to share with a friend. Share email, social media. Let us know. We love to hear from you guys. And with that, I hope you guys go and live in your freaking awesome seasons of life.